Coach's Corner is your source. Baseball, football, soccer, and hoops. The Coach's Corner has the scoop. It's the Coach's Corner with Andy.
Covering Tri-State sports, it's the Coach's Corner with Andy on 92.1 The GOAT.
It's the Coach's Corner.
I'm Andy with the Coach's Corner. I have a very good friend here, Ian Lane. Me and Ian go back a little bit. I've known Ian probably since, how long have I known you, Ian? Probably since you were about 10, right?
Yeah, just about.
It's been a while. You look the same. You're just taller. Ian plays football at Bridgewater University. He's a sophomore there. So, Ian, you're on the JV team there at Bridgewater, or the development team as they call it. And this is your second season with the Eagles. First, I want to touch on, you did have a little bit of a setback last year. You want to touch on that a little bit and tell us everything that happened?
So it was 2 days before I moved in, and me and my buddies went fishing, kind of like a little goodbye trip before I moved into college, and I ended up getting bit by a tick, but I didn't know I got bit by a tick through our 2-week stint of camp. We got to go home, first time going home, and long story short, I ended up waking up my first day back home, and the whole right side of my face was paralyzed. Couldn't move it at all.
Wow.
And first we go to urgent care, and they were like, "Oh, it's just sinuses. It's just sinuses." And it progressively got worse. Yeah, I ended up finding out Lyme disease from my actual family doctor, and then it progressively got worse throughout the month of September to where my whole face was paralyzed. I couldn't move the mouth at all. Couldn't fully close my eyes. So that was how I started my first semester of college. Was just
memorable,
complete paralyzed. And this is also the first time that I missed more than a week of football.
Yeah.
So it was more just like, I'm trying to make new friends without being able to play football. And all I did was record the practices and grab gear. So it was kind of just.
But at least you still got to be around the team. You were able to participate in the activities and everything.
Yeah, there was the one thing that was a struggle was with eligibility is completely different from how D1 works with D3. So any little thing that I do with the team in D3, it could potentially be eligibility. So I forget the whole list and everything like that.
Yeah.
But
there's always rules and regulations that you don't even know about probably until you actually almost break it. Well, good. I'm glad you're able to recover and make a full recovery. I've seen some of the pictures from I'm good friends with your mom and dad too. I've seen the pictures on Facebook, and I see you in there and making plays, getting sacks. What position they have you at there at Bridgewater this year?
I play DN, the strong side DN.
Okay. And when you were playing in high school, you played at Williamsport with Tim Small. I've had Tim on here before. Tim's a great guy.
I watched that video
awesome.
Last night before this.
We talked about you. Well, I don't think we talked about you in the video, but he mentioned you a little bit. So you played at Williamsport. Were you a defensive end in Williamsport, or where did you play in high school?
So I love telling the story of the position because it is a progressive story. So coming in my freshman year, I was the starting tight end varsity for the first half of the first game.
You said a freshman?
Yeah, as a freshman. I started
cool.
I started all 4 years. So I started off at tight end. I got benched at halftime. And then I just sat on the bench as the backup tight end all year until the playoffs rolled around. And two of our starting inside linebackers, like the guys that rotated in, both got hurt. So I got put in inside linebacker. And then I played that for the 2 playoff games my freshman year. Then I played outside linebacker my sophomore year. Though that we had 2 games that year, so I didn't really play much.
Oh, was that the COVID year?
Yeah, that was the COVID year.
All right.
And then my junior year, it was kind of like, it's called the Jack. It's one of the outside linebackers.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an apex type player. I have a lot of free range. It worked out to where I was at an outside linebacker, but if they brought up another man, a tight end right there, I would go up and be on the edge side there. And I love doing that, but then my senior year is when I really started playing actual 5-tech defensive end, and that's kind of what I've been playing ever since.
Sweet. That's awesome. You also played a little bit of junior league in Williamsport as well. You played for the Vikings. Is that where you really started to fall in love with football, or have you always played football since you could walk?
Always. It was the first team I played for was the Ravens. That was the Pee Wee of the WCGFL. Okay. But even before that, I remember I used to have a San Francisco 49ers, one of those fake plastic helmets. And in the little living room right there by our front door, I would play with I had like a stuffed animal beagle. I used that as a football because we had no footballs at the house. So I used that and that Niners helmet, and I just pretended to play football up there. I had a whole new conference in the college football. I had a whole bunch of new teams, and I was the quarterback on every single one of them.
Of course. It's hard to imagine the Lane household without a football in it.
It was ever since I started Pee Wee. I started to have football. I probably have like 5 in there now, but I don't know how we didn't have one before.
So, your time at Bridgewater. So this is technically last season was your full season, though you didn't really get to participate, in a sense as a player. This is your full season as a player. How's it been going? How are you doing? Any highlights you want to talk about? Any parts of the year that have been your favorite so far?
Um, a favorite would probably be week 2 because that's been the only time I've dressed for varsity. The reason I got to dress is because we do scout team players of the week. Because
Yep.
I'm on JV as scout team for the offense, which can be hard throughout the week.
Yeah.
But I did get scout team player of the week for that week, and I got to dress for that game. And that also happened to be the game where we won 80-0
I was about to
over
ask if that was
Southern
that game.
Virginia. So I didn't get to play until like 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but I did record my first 2 career tackles. So that means for
Nice.
that's probably my highest moment. But I have played pretty good throughout the JV games, but it's not as big as for me as it is recording my first career tackle in a varsity game.
Right, right. And I mean, it's a whole different level. I imagine it's probably night and day between the two.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, night and day, probably going from high school to college. What's the difference in college football rather than high school football? Obviously, besides the competition.
I honestly, for me personally, I'm not the biggest dude on the team.
Right.
Every guy I'm going against on the O-line is bigger than me every single time. So like all throughout from Pee Wee all the way to my senior year, I had the ability to just overpower everybody. But now it's like
Right, because you're not a
I
small dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
But these
the
dudes are
lanes don't grow small boys. That's for sure.
and I always thought I would be the biggest one, but now I show up and for example, our starting right tackle, he's like 6'5", 250, and I'm 6 foot 205. So it's like I don't
Yeah.
have the ability to just say, screw you, I'm gonna power through your face. Now I can, but it's not an every play option. So that's definitely the biggest difference from the high school to college level.
Yeah, I imagine. I can't even begin to think about some of those dudes on the varsity team that I've seen that you play with. They are giant.
Oh
I
yeah, they're
thought
both
I thought
big.
you were a big guy. So walk us through a typical game day. What processes do you have to go through to prep for your game? Do you have certain routines that you have to do before you play?
So it's different for the one game that I did dress for the varsity. We do it to where we have a team devotional where we all dress up in our suits, and it's kind of just Coach Lem gives us a motivational speech, and then my mom actually has the tailgate spot there. So when I did dress, I after I got done with the devotional, went down, saw my parents, went back to the locker room, and this kind of typical locker room stuff. Now this is where I do the same thing for JV, because for JV we don't do the devotional things like that.
Yeah,
But as soon as I get into the locker room for each game, it's just hopefully I remember my headphones, but I listen to music, because I don't get how people can listen to like super hype music before a game. It's just that's just not what I listen to. But I don't really. I know everyone always says they have like a superstitious thing they do before every game. I really just it's just the typical listen to music, get dressed, pray, then go play. I really can't think of anything that I do that
it's just
stands
routine for
around.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, that's hey, the fact that you guys do that as a team together is cool too. That's really awesome. So when you guys practice, how much of your practices through the week are like the physical practices where you're running through plays, doing drills, and how much is like the mental preparation for your opponent coming up the
So
next week?
I actually love how we have it set up. It's perfect. So Monday we have helmets only. It's kind of just like a slow walkthrough of what our plan is for Saturday's game. Tuesday is the physical. We go full pads. We have more of our competition type periods. Wednesday is shells where it's just the shoulder pads and the helmet. Um, those are still pretty physical, but there's more more mental type aspects while
Yeah.
also still being physical. And then Thursdays we go back to helmets, and there's a higher. Well, we also focus on special teams throughout the week, but if I remember correctly, there's more special teams to start the practice on Thursdays than there is. But then we just go back to a slow mental review.
Mhm.
And then Friday is dress squad practice onlys, and that is walkthrough. It's like a 45-minute practice. Now there's way more special teams on those Friday practices,
Yeah.
and it's just less team, but that is full review. Just go over everything that we installed for the week and everything that's in the game plan.
So it's kind of like you build it up to the middle of the week and then kind of take it down a little before the game. I gotcha. Makes sense. So my next question for you isn't about Bridgewater. It's about one of your favorite football teams. Not the San Francisco 49ers, even though you had a plastic helmet when you were growing up, but you're a Miami Dolphins fan, correct?
Huge Dolphins fan.
So I'm assuming you saw the news that Tua is back as a limited participant in practice.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Do you think he should be back?
I as soon as I saw that arm go up against the Bills, it was like the first thing I thought of. As a player, I get why it's hard to retire. I don't think anyone that truly loves playing football can just walk away just like that.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I also see why, because I'm a Dolphins fan. Obviously, I want Tua to be on the team.
Right. They're suffering without him.
I get both sides of the argument of seeing why he should retire, seeing why he shouldn't, but I agree with his decision not to retire. And I also agree with his decision to not wear the Guardian cap. I think he's definitely making the right decision to come back.
If he did wear the Guardian cap, he would be the first quarterback to do it. I'm pretty sure. I don't think any other quarterback's ever done it.
But we also, our running back Devon Achane just started wearing one because he had a concussion right before our bye week, and
I remember that.
He wore one this week against the Colts. But my thing with the Guardian caps is they do help, but there have been people who've gotten concussions while wearing the Guardian cap.
Right. So the Guardian cap isn't it's like when I read somewhere somebody said about the Guardian cap, it's like your head is like well, I don't know, we'll call it let's call it an egg. Like your head is the egg. The Guardian cap is just a jar that the egg sits in. I mean, if you jar the jar around, the egg's still going to possibly break. But it's just going to prevent it from doing it sooner. But I mean, they're doing tons of studies with CTE and stuff like that, where hopefully they'll make strides and figure out treatments for it. If a player does happen to affect a player, we've seen the effects of it already, the past couple seasons.
Antonio Brown is one.
Antonio Brown is a big one, the big name to come out. Hopefully Tua is not on that list as well. He's got 3 concussions now?
Yeah, it was 3. He had the one against Buffalo in 2021, and then the first time where his fingers did the whole mess up thing.
That's right. The first one was Buffalo. I forgot about that. He needs to stop playing that team.
Our doctors got fired because they first said it was a back injury and they didn't properly treat the concussion. And the other thing is that we played that game on Sunday against Buffalo. Then he came back to play the Bengals on a Thursday.
I remember that.
He didn't have much time to recover from it.
I remember that. Yeah. I think I understand his decision too. Now, I'm not a football player. I've never played football, obviously professionally. Organized football, backyard football doesn't really count. But I understand it coming from somebody who's played sports as well. You don't want to hang it up if you can help it, but you also have to stay safe, which I think he'll take more measures of being safer out there. Just slide.
Well, the thing with sliding is a bunch of people said this to me after you slide. There are still players that will go after you when you slide.
Yeah.
So there has been an argument that diving. Now, he didn't dive. He tried to run him over.
Yeah,
so
he was trying to truck him, right.
I agree with the argument. Sliding is safety, but I also agree if I were to dive right now, it's going to sound bad when I say it, but dive at the defensive player's knees. Because if I'm a quarterback and I dive at their knees, they're going to move. But if I slide, they can still make an attempt at me. But if I dive toward their knees, then they start thinking about themselves and they'll move themselves.
That's smart.
So honestly, but think about it. You're in the moment.
Yeah.
You really aren't thinking.
It's a split decision, right?
Football is a split decision every play, but that one is just.
Well,
bigger.
a split decision about the game, not about your health. But when you're running down the field and you're thinking, "Man, I'm going to run this dude over. I'm going to get a touchdown." You don't think maybe I should stop. I might get a concussion right here. Well, unless you're Tua and he has 3.
Right.
So, but yeah, I hope the guy recovers, and I hope he can come back and produce some points and help out the Dolphins. Now, not to change sports subjects, but I want to touch on another of your favorite teams because the NBA season just started. And I know you're a huge Clippers fan.
Big time.
How did you become a Clippers fan? I understand the Dolphins because of the popularity and everything like that. I mean, the Clippers aren't a non-popular team, but
I have
kind of a random
reasons for every one of my team. I get made fun of for my reasons, but my big reason for this is Blake Griffin.
Okay.
I loved Blake Griffin. Now, when I first started watching basketball, I was a LeBron fan. I feel like every kid was. I followed LeBron everywhere he went.
He's like this generation's Michael Jordan. Right.
And then I saw a bunch of videos of like Blake Griffin and Chris Paul lobbing and dunked over the car, and I was just like, you know what? I'm done being a LeBron fan. I'm gonna bandwagon this team. Haven't done much success, but then
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I liked the Bulls for that very reason. You see MJ, Scottie Pippen, and Tony Kukoc, they're all out there scoring points, and it almost looks like a fun like circus. Like it's like entertainment, not just a basketball game. And I liked the Bulls growing up, and that's who everybody loved when I was, in elementary school and stuff like that. I don't really follow basketball too much today, but if I had to pick a team, I would probably say I like the Grizzlies. I like Ja Morant a lot.
I loved Ja Morant.
I like watching him play. Yeah, I really enjoy watching him play, and that's the reason I like them, is because I like to watch him play. But I do like the game of basketball. Just like I said, with baseball, professional baseball, I don't have time to sit down and follow it because there's so many games.
I used to hate baseball, and then I'm a Tigers fan. I was always a Tigers fan, even when I hated it. But I don't know, something just switched when I got to high school, and I started watching more games. It's just like, you know what? I can't watch it. I can't sit and watch a game if it's not my favorite team, because it is boring to watch on TV. The announcers talk about nonsense throughout 95% of the innings. But like when you actually have a reason to cheer for it, it's fun. But I actually got lucky. I did get to go to a game 2 years ago for my birthday. My girlfriend bought me first baseline tickets right there. It was it was the most boring baseball game of all time. No one scored until the 9th inning, but I got to see most of the time. Yeah, I got to see Miguel Cabrera play before he retired, because he is my favorite player of all time in baseball.
Was that in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Nice. That's a great stadium to go to too.
Oh yeah, I love it there.
So back to the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard's actually out right now with a knee problem, and he's not going to be playing for a couple weeks. Do you think that's going to hamper the start of the Clippers a little bit, or?
After last night, no. I mean, we did lose last night, but we lost by 3 in overtime to a competitive Suns team. So I'm very high on Terrence Mann. I've always loved Terrence Mann. So I think he didn't play too well last night.
Yeah.
But I think Harden has enough in him to facilitate and take over like he used to when he was in the Rockets. And I think we just have enough guys that work well together to play good. And I think we have a great rotation, because Zubac got fouled 2 times. Well, he got 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes, and then Kai Jones came in and played pretty good for the couple times I watched. But I just think we have enough guys in the roster to play good until Kawhi gets back.
Yeah, NBA is all about the depth and who you have on the bench. The 6th man is so important on an NBA team. I agree with the James Harden comment, though. He's that veteran leadership in the locker room still. He knows what he's doing. But like you said, he hasn't really had to play like he did with Houston, because he's got so many other pieces around him. The now gone Paul George was a Clipper.
That one hurt the most.
Yeah, that one. He's
was my favorite player of all time, and watching him. I get why he left, though, because I watched his podcast, and he said something about how he just wanted the same contract Kawhi got.
Yeah.
They wouldn't offer him the same contract. And now if I'm the Clippers, as much as I love Kawhi, and it's slightly biased because it's Paul George, but I'm giving Paul George the contract before I'm giving Kawhi, because Paul George has played way more since signed both of them than Kawhi has.
Yeah.
And they knew Kawhi was still having injuries when they gave him the contract extension. Now, he does play amazing when he's not injured, but when isn't he injured? So it's like, why are you giving him the money when he's just going to be sitting on the bench in street clothes?
Yeah, I agree. Paul George was, I feel like they're both great scorers, but Paul George was that anywhere from the floor kind of scorer. I mean, Kawhi can be too, but he's more known for his defense.
Yeah, I think Paul George is more versatile. Now, every time I argue why he's my favorite player, it's because of how versatile he is. Because like you'll watch his highlights, you see him scoring on anybody, but then you go back and look a couple years ago, in 2018, he was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation there for a good bit of the year. So it's like that shows how versatile he is.
Yeah, it just depends on the situation of the team and what he needs to do at the time. Yeah, I agree. So we'll see how they do. It's the season just started, so there's a lot of NBA left. There's a lot of NFL left too, so we'll see how that goes. I don't think my Commanders play your Dolphins this year, do they?
I wish they would. That'd be a way for them to go, but I don't think they do because I know we played you guys last year.
Yeah, it was either last year and then I think like 3 years ago. So it's or maybe it's every other year. I know they try to switch out conferences, but yeah. But thanks for hanging out today, dude. I appreciate you coming on. Good luck the rest of your season in Bridgewater. And when's your next game? Is it coming up this weekend?
We play at Randolph-Macon this week. So
okay, so you're away.
Yeah, they got
the next home game.
The week after that. I think it's either Hampton-Sydney or Washington and Lee, one of the two.
Okay. And if everybody wants to get out to the game, they can just find the schedule at the website for the college, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, Ian. Have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Thank you. You too.
If you'd like to be featured on the Coach's Corner with Andy, email coach at 921thegoat.com.